For over 10 years, the fate of Kyle Crane, the hero of the first Dying Light, remained a mystery. Some fans thought he was dead, others thought he'd permanently turned into a zombie. But none of them knew the truth. Except Techland. After so many years, our Polish comrades decided to give us an answer to this question. Today, I'll tell you the plot of Dying Light the Beast. In the meantime, share your thoughts on this installment in the comments. To understand the story, we need to briefly review the first installment. It all began in 2015 when the Turkish city of Harran was engulfed by a terrible epidemic that turned people into zombies. Against this backdrop, GRE, the Global Relief and Expedition, was formed, a special organization providing aid to survivors in the quarantine zone. Sometime later, GRE sends its agent Kyle Crane to the isolated city to retrieve an important file stolen by former politician and now gangster Race. During his adventures, Crane tries to help the locals, but at some point, he discovers the true nature of the GRE. They are not who they claim to be. The GRE wanted to create a bioweapon from the virus, not destroy it. They don't care about human lives, only about money. However, Crane manages to thwart their insidious plans, albeit at the cost of many dead friends. After some time, Crane travels to the outskirts of Harran in search of a cure for the virus. There, our hero encounters the mysterious Children of the Sun sect and its leader, a certain mother. As it turns out later, she is a sentient jumper. As a result of the mother's actions, Crane becomes something unnatural, a hybrid of human and jumper who retains his intelligence. Then, a few years later, the fall comes, the end of the world. This was told in the second part. And Crane, all this time, was hiding from the GRE. But eventually, they caught him and began conducting horrific experiments on him. The main events begin after the end of the second part. Crane recounts how the GRE subjected him to inhumane experiments for 13 years. They also somehow managed to restore his human form. So no, he won't look like a jumper here. After that, they began to torment his body and mind with endless experiments, but Crane's iron will is not so easily broken. All this time, he never gave up and dreamed of only one thing: to kill the man behind it all. Crane then comes to in a hospital room while scientists conduct various tests on him. But suddenly, someone clearly from the outside enters the room. One of the strangers can easily be unidentified as Spike, Crane's old friend from Harran, as well as Aiden's buddy from the second game. However, the second man's face is hidden behind a mask. The two attack the scientists and attempt to free Crane, but it's too late. The security of the complex has detected the intrusion and captured the infiltrators. Apparently, our escape was thwarted. Later, during yet another experiment on Crane, the mastermind behind it all appeared before us. Marius Fisher, nicknamed the Baron. He is the one responsible for all the experiments on our protagonist, therefore Crane openly expresses his overwhelming desire to kill him. But the Baron merely smirks and declares that he no longer needs us. He has a new test subject, one who is much tougher than us and, to boot, more compliant. After these words, he leaves, abandoning Crane to his fate. Now, he doesn't care whether he survives the latest experiment or not. However, something goes wrong. The test subject next to us begins to behave extremely aggressively, and eventually, the beast escapes from the cage, and Crane, in the confusion, also manages to free himself. He picks up a radio, where he hears a girl named Olivia speaking. She says she will help us escape, we just need to follow her instructions. Well, there's really no choice, so Crane literally crawls to the exit. Later, we shot ourselves up with adrenaline and finally got back on our feet. While wandering around this complex, Crane stumbled upon some zombies. So, to annihilate them, he broke off a piece of rusty pipe and started bashing them. But when we finally reach the escape elevator, Crane is attacked by a huge number of zombies, and it seems we can't handle such a large number. But suddenly, something happens. The beast within Kyle awakens, and then our hero gains incredible strength and vitality. Now Crane is half human and half jumper, and he's literally capable of tearing enemies apart. Well, we'll talk about beast mode later. Meanwhile, Olivia says over the comm that we're now in the Baron's main lab. Here, he conducts experiments on the infected and humans. Suddenly, Olivia disappears, so we have to find our own way to freedom. Eventually, we succeed. Crane reaches the surface and finds himself in a dense forest. Then Olivia contacts him again and tells him we're now in Casterwoods. It's a small tourist valley nestled between mountain ranges. After that, Olivia tells us to go to the local monastery. We'll meet her there in person. Well, let's go. Oh, and by the way, I really like the soundtrack of the new game. It sounds so nice and it's really stuck in my head. It's also cool that a remix of the original theme from the first game plays occasionally. It really brings a nostalgic tear to my eye. Meanwhile, Crane reaches his destination. Olivia arrives too. Crane immediately asks what she wants from us. She replies that she wants to escape from here, with our help. It also turns out that Olivia worked for the Baron. In the past, she was likely one of his scientists. Crane, however, has only one goal: revenge on the scoundrel Baron and killing him. Olivia agrees, but we're too weak right now, plus the Baron controls this entire valley with his personal army. We can't stand alone, so we'll need to enlist the help of allies, obtain equipment, and most importantly, restore Crane's strength, and gene stimulants will help us with that. Olivia explained that they produced these things in the lab. When used, they significantly enhance the host's abilities, and to synthesize a gene stimulant, we'll need chimera blood. Chimeras are special mutants created by the Baron in his lab, and the first chimera we encounter will be a beefed up Snork from Stalker. Basically, I killed him, Olivia showed up, Crane suddenly felt sick at the sight of a woman next to him, and she used a special device to extract the chimera's blood, thereby synthesizing a gene stimulant. After that, she injected Crane with it. Then, a few days later, it started. Olivia told me that Crane's adrenaline spiked, and he almost died actually, but thanks to the injection, he feels much better. We also received a boost to the beast's strength. And, as you understand, by finding other chimeras, we will gradually level up the beast's skills so that we can eventually become the most powerful mutant and drop in on the Baron. Our friend also told me that the Baron is chilling in his huge estate, guarded by an equally huge army, and getting to him will require a lot of resources and effort. So Olivia sends Crane to check out the local town. Perhaps the survivors there can help us. In the meantime, she'll be busy searching for the new chimera. Oh, and she also gives Crane this device so we can use it to extract stimulants from the chimeras, and give her blood samples for analysis to understand the Baron's goals. Well, the prologue is complete, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the open world. By the way, since we have a free minute, a little interesting fact. You can see some kind of rosary on Crane's left hand, and the Alds might remember that these rosary beads belonged to Jade from the first game. We could see them around her neck earlier. And, as it turns out, Crane took them after her death, and he still wears them in memory of her. Ah, quite touching. Yes, that's actually a cool detail. Well, let's not dwell on the sad stuff. As is tradition, let's talk a few words about the gameplay. Its core remains the same. You run, parkour, hack and slash zombies, and upgrade your arsenal in every way possible. Among the new mechanics, we now have the ability to drive a car. Although new is certainly a strong word, considering that back in the following we were able to drive a buggy and even upgrade it. But here, it's just cars, no upgrades. But the physics have become much more enjoyable, while perhaps the most important innovation is beast mode. Oh yeah, guys, this is the first Dying Light game in which we're not running from zombies, but they're running from us. I won't lie, this mechanic is simply the best. Kyle can temporarily activate beast mode and become a pure killing machine. It reminded me a bit of Spartan Fury from God of War, but beast mode is perhaps even cooler considering how brutal his finishing moves are. This is just an absolute gem. Plus, beast mode has quite a few different moves and skills to upgrade. Basically, it's just overpowered. Oh, and by the way, in this part, when night falls, the jumpers receive a warning that Kyle Crane has awakened. So after some time, Crane scouted out the situation and arrived at City Hall, where the survivors were supposed to be, but there weren't any inside, only the Baron's dead soldiers. Judging by the surroundings, something bad had happened, so I went to rescue the people, but another chimera stood in my way. Anyway, I blew that thing apart, and Crane injected himself with another stimulant derived from its blood. And thanks to that, we became even stronger. Then, I finally met the local survivors. Is that Morgan Freeman? No, it's Jacob. He's supposedly in charge here. Jacob thanks our hero for his help, but says it'll probably just delay the inevitable. After all, their entire defense is down. The UV lamps, of course, are also broken. Besides, some kind of monster, the kind no one has ever seen before, recently attacked the town hall, but that's for later. Now Crane decides to help the poor souls and sets off on the sheriff's trail. Along the way, we meet Leon Kennedy. What? Anyway, on the roof, Crane meets Florence, who's earned the nickname Sheriff. So, that's what we'll call her from now on. The sheriff is responsible for security at City Hall. She's currently asking Kyle to help her turn on the power, which we do. After that, we head back inside. It turns out Leonchik was bitten by zombies and decided to kill himself so as not to endanger his comrades. Yeah, sad. Then our heroes discuss the Beast. It's the same special mutant that recently attacked them. The sheriff says she saw it running away somewhere across the rooftops, and later Jacob adds to the story. It turns out the Beast was pursuing the Baron's men who came to City Hall to hide from it, and it's after them. So Jacob is pissed that the Beast will return, and he casually asks Crane for help in this matter. That is, to track down and kill the Beast. Well, considering we could really use some allies, refusing them is unprofitable. So Crane waits until nightfall and sets out to find the Beast. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that the night in this game feels just like the night in the first one. Because, well, just look at it. It's pitch black. You can't move a step without a flashlight, and yet there are jumpers everywhere that react to the light of a flashlight. And here, whether you like it or not, you're actually shaking with fear. In that moment, I realized I'd finally felt that same feeling of fear. Something I felt in the first game long ago. It turns out the developers weren't lying about trying to make the Beast much scarier than Stay Human. Kudos to them for that. Eventually, after a long run, Crane catches up with the Beast in a railway tunnel, and here you can see that it doesn't really look like a zombie, more like a rabid human, and yet we weren't able to kill it. The Beast escaped. Later, Crane told Olivia about the whole thing. She was surprised, of course, and she also called us back to the monastery to talk about something important. As it turns out, our comrade needed blood samples from the second chimera we killed, and Crane's blood. This is necessary for her research. She's apparently trying to figure out if chimeras have the same genetic codes, but this is still purely theoretical. She also told us where to look for the next chimera, and Crane set off. There I found this creature. It looks a bit like the Banshee from DL2, or I think that's what it is. Anyway, I destroyed it, and as is customary, extracted the stimulant, and I started shooting up, and damn, I'm really tempted to touch on the combat system, so with your permission I will. Well, Techland, you're awesome. They fixed the mistake they made in the second game where the combat was crap, frankly. Well, only at release, but in Best, again, there are vibes from the first game. You can really feel the weight of the weapon in your hand, just like its heavy sweeping blows. You can tell you're holding a real iron axe, not some shitty match like in the second game. And about the gore, oh yeah, those Polish guys didn't lie about that either. They made the damage model and the guts themselves much more realistic, which is the icing on the cake of this wonderful combat system, coupled with Beast Mode and its brutal executions. In short, this is simply peak gameplay. The developers deserve respect. Meanwhile, our protagonist returns to City Hall to check on the locals. The sheriff and Jacob inform us of serious power problems. City Hall is currently powered by a backup system, but it's unclear how long it will last. The main station went down about a month ago, and the technician there has stopped communicating. As you can imagine, Crane needs to rush to the power station and restore power to the people. Fortunately, this isn't the first time for me. I activated all the power stations on the map back in the second game. Yes, I definitely have some problems. So, at the station, Crane met a stuffy technician named Largo. He's stuffy because he kept whining over the radio. But checkmate, Largo. The station was activated thanks to Crane's actions. But suddenly, the shaky guy cuts off the power again. And then it turns out that this shaky guy works for the Baron, and he's already brought his soldiers here. Crane is quickly handcuffed and held at gunpoint. However, these soldiers had no idea who they were dealing with, and they're unaware of Kyle's beast mode, so we free ourselves and kill all of the Baron's mercenaries. After the fight, Crane reports to the sheriff that the Baron had initially shut down the station. Despite this, she doesn't want to fight him, concerned for the safety of her people. Crane, however, declares that our war with the Baron has already begun, so for now, we agree that we clearly need to build up our forces. And the sheriff will also send his men to spy on the Baron's men so we can learn something important about his plans. In the meantime, let's go take care of the minor stuff. Incidentally, I really liked the design of the new location, and the city's architecture is somewhat reminiscent of the old town from the first DL. Perhaps this is even a reference to it, judging by the fact that it has the same name. The fields and forests of Casterwoods, to me personally, give off the vibes of the following expansion. But most importantly, the location as a whole is darker. Compared to the almost rainbow-colored Velador from DL2, which looks rather frivolous, albeit beautiful in places, sometime later, Kyle visited the sheriff again. This time, he wanted to ask her about a local monument, as the Baron's soldiers were up to something near it. The sheriff explained that her patrols rarely go there, but judging by the information they already had, the Baron was likely conducting some kind of experiments there. So Crane trudged to the monument. All they saw there were the corpses of the Baron's men, along with strange devices and cylinders of some kind of gas. Crane noticed the inscription E and F on the cylinder. Olivia, in turn, learned that these were chemicals the Baron produced in his lab. But they also had a separate factory for this purpose, south of town. At this factory, we find a bunch of the Baron's men, and Kryn also meets this scientist. He tells us that just a couple minutes ago, a chimera escaped from here, heading somewhere toward the forest. To lure it, we'll need that gas. Yes, it turns out it's used as bait for chimeras. Crane takes a canister from the warehouse and loads it into a special device that will spray the gas across the area. And then, drawn to its wonderful aroma, this creature comes running. It's Leviathan. A rather sweaty boss, but I still managed to unravel it. I injected it with a stimulant and took a sample to Olivia for analysis. She explained that the Chimera's DNA has some similarities to Crane's. Apparently, the Baron tried to imbue the Chimeras with Crane's abilities, but something didn't work. After that, Kyle goes to the sheriff. She said she noticed a concentration of the Baron's men and himself near the mine, and now that bastard is there, inside. Crane realizes it's time for revenge. He believes he's ready for it. So he asks the sheriff to cover him from here, while he brazenly swoops into the Baron's men's hut and wipes them all out. And so we reach the mysterious chamber deep within the caves. The only strange thing is that the sheriff has stopped communicating. However, a moment later, she appears before us, and it turns out she betrayed us. She lured us into a trap, because at that very moment, Crane is surrounded by the Baron's men, and then he appears in person and reveals his true identity. To our hero's question about the meaning of all this 13-year torture, the Baron replies that he is creating the future and our role in this project has already been played out. Basically, he's playing the evil genius. Or is he? Either way, Crane isn't satisfied with this option. He manages to open the chamber and, as it turns out, release the beast. The same one we were chasing not long ago. So this guy makes a fuss and runs away, and Crane, in the confusion, also took off and evaded capture. However, we didn't kill the Baron, so the operation went a bit wrong. Outside, the sheriff calls Kyle. She's surprised we survived and says she had no choice. But Kyle doesn't care. He's going after her since she's conspired with the Baron, which means she's essentially betrayed everyone else at City Hall. After all, the Baron is an enemy to us all. Speaking of City Hall, the sheriff wasn't there. She'd already fled somewhere in fear. Jacob doesn't know where either. He was also shocked to learn that she worked for the Baron. He didn't know that either, as you can imagine. Well, it doesn't matter now. The main thing is that our goal is still intact. We must finish off the Baron. Jacob told us about the outcasts. They were people who used to live here, in the City Hall. However, they were later driven out as they were all infected, but with the help of some kind of fungal serum, they managed to stop the transformation process and therefore preserve their sanity. Now they've created their own community somewhere in the mountains. Crane is going to them to recruit them and gain even more allies, but here they beat us to it. And suddenly, right in Crane's head, literally the voice of Sven, one of the outcasts, sounded. He said he possessed telepathy, like all the other outcasts. This is how they communicate with each other without a radio. It's some kind of superpower, because they are half infected, and they can talk to Crane like that for the same reason, because he is a hybrid of a human and a jumper, that is, an infected. Well, you get the idea. I'm here. Anyway, Sven asks us to come to the farm and help him. Someone attacked him. As it turns out later, it was the Baron's men who would have doubted it, and here's Sven himself. He explains that he can tell us a lot about the Baron, since the outcasts have been keeping an eye on him for a long time, and what's more, they were tortured in the labs just like us. And they too basically want revenge on him, but that's later. For now, we need to rescue the rest of Sven's telepathic friends, so I set off. By the way, the game has some really cool dialogue, and especially Crane's charisma. So, Crane learned the location of the prisoners via the enemy radio, but they had already been taken away by car. Then they got into an accident, but I saved them all and took them to the Outcasts' main hideout. We immediately met Lydia, the leader of the Outcasts. She's grateful for our help, but like the sheriff at first, she refuses to go against the Baron. Because why? Right, it's too dangerous for her people, that's why they're driving us away. But only for now. Sven says she'll come to her senses, then he introduces us to Selby. She's a radio surveillance specialist. Drugane the telepath hands us a signal booster, and Selby instructs us to place it on radio towers to eavesdrop on the Baron's soldiers' communications. And, well, I succeeded. After all, this isn't the first time I've had to climb some really tall towers. In the Dying Light series, true, we weren't given the chance to rejoice over the fact that the communication was fully operational. Our friends immediately reported that the Baron's men had mined an underground complex located directly beneath City Hall, and if the charges detonate, City Hall is finished, as you might guess. Luckily, the brave hero Kyle Crane swooped in, eliminated all of the Baron's henchmen, and disarmed the charges. Well, City Hall was saved. We got off with a slight fright and some shit in our pants. A little later, Olivia informed Crane of the location of another Chimera, after which I went to fight it. Incidentally, they added a grenade launcher in this part, and it's truly overpowered. It smashes bosses to smithereens, however, ammo for it is hard to craft. Nevertheless, the Chimera is defeated, and its strength is increased. Suddenly, Sven contacts us via telepathic Discord. He reports that the Baron's scientists recently conducted experiments at a nearby school, but they were attacked by bandits. However, that doesn't matter to us, we just need to retrieve the research materials. Incidentally, Lydia, the leader of the Outcasts, suddenly changed her mind and joined the game against the Baron, assigning us this task at the school. So now we're on our way to enlist their support. At the school, in addition to conducting research, we find one of the Baron's scientists, Camilo Marin. Our teammates decide to take him back to the base. Perhaps Lydia can extract some information from him. Well, I also stole the scientist's materials and returned to the shelter. It would seem that we can chill, but Chelik, who was supposed to bring Camilo here, never returned. Crane goes searching and quickly discovers that their transport was attacked by zombies. The driver died, but Camilo survived the accident and hid in a nearby house. That's where I found him. Then the rest of our comrades came shambling over, and then came the unexpected twist. Camila and Lydia already knew each other. It turned out he'd been the one who'd experimented on them in the Baron's lab. However, Camilo wasn't as ruthless a scientist as the others. He treated them like people, not rats. Moreover, it was he who created the mushroom serum that prevented the outcasts from completely turning into zombies. That's why the outcasts respect him and consider him perhaps a friend. Crane reported the whole story to Olivia, and from her we learned that Camila is one of Baron's leading scientists. So we literally hit the jackpot. Besides, I delivered a data disk to Olivia for research, and there's probably something very useful there too. Meanwhile, I reset another Chimera and returned to Olivia. Our friend discovered that the military had previously used gas against the infected. She cites the blue fog as an example. Yes, that's the fog. Crane matured in the following expansion, and the Children of the Sun cult began using it as a defense. The Baron, however, modernized the project and created a red fog that causes uncontrollable rage. And with this thing, he can set the infected on those he dislikes. Olivia also admitted that her father, who was a scientist in Haran back in the day, was the original developer of the gas. When he fell, her father brought Olivia here. Now, he's in the Baron's thrall, as she put it. Then I went to talk to Lydia. She told our hero that Camila, with the help of certain drugs, could significantly enhance her telepathic abilities. From simple communication to controlling the infected. Sounds tempting, there's one catch though. To create the miracle drug, Crane will need to herd the jumpers into the nest, because Camille needs a sample of jumper plasma from its larva. Yeah, well, what can you do? Let's go to the nest. Honestly, it was tense there, but it still doesn't compare to the first game. I was afraid to even come within a meter of the nest, let alone go in there. Yeah, I'm a pussy. Interestingly, we encountered a chimera jumper, or phantom, in the nest. A very unusual enemy. It's a jumper that can become completely invisible. Yeah, that's all they need. They're already causing problems at night. Although, after the adventures in the nest, I delivered all 3 plasma samples to Lydia. Then I went to Olivia's for the last chimera. In the car, the girl confessed something else to us. In short, she learned that it was her father who found Crane after his escape from Haran and handed him over to the Baron for experimentation. Olivia believes her father did it without malice and didn't want to torment him, but the Baron believed otherwise. He saw great potential in Crane and wanted to recreate his abilities. To breed the perfect predator and use him as a weapon. However, all that resulted were unsuccessful monsters, chimeras. Meanwhile, Dr. Camilla was working on another area, telepathy and mind control. That's where the outcast abilities come from, something like that. And then Crane gained absolute power in the last escaped chimera, and now he's ready to go after that bastard. As we learn a little later, Lydia has already been injected with the dose, and now she can keep the infected under control, partially. After all, to fully unlock her potential, we need to retrieve some more medical equipment from the old mental hospital, which naturally is deadly. But only we can go there. Well, who else? Luckily, Lydia will help us with this by pacifying the infected through telepathy, and it really works. All the zombies nearby will be blinded and can't see us, even the jumpers. Taking advantage of this, I found the necessary drug, but then I had to quickly get my ass out of here because Lydia got distracted by something and the hypnosis went out the window. In the end, everything ended well, and I handed the drug over to our buddies. But then suddenly, our other buddies from City Hall report that the Baron's men have attacked them. Crane runs there as fast as he can and discovers that the Baron's men have planted a gas dispenser near the City Hall entrance to attract the infected there. Then they even started shelling the area with mortars loaded with bombs containing the same gas. Basically, the Baron got really mad. I killed all the soldiers, but then the chimeras showed up, 3 of them in total. It seemed like we were doomed, but Lydia managed to take over the mind of one of them and turn it against the other. What can I say? Telepaths have their quirks. After the attack was repelled, a rat showed up, the sheriff. By the way, she had contacted us before and asked us to put old grudges aside for a while and help protect City Hall. However, Crane, of course, wasn't happy to see her. Then she explains how it really happened. Anyway, at some point, the Baron's men captured her and gave her an ultimatum. Either she handed Crane over to them, or they would kill her and the other survivors at City Hall. And she had to make this extremely difficult choice, which she deeply regrets. And yet, she can understand, well, what's done is done. The outcasts arrive at City Hall. The sheriff apologizes to them, and so they make peace. Now everything is ready. They can go after the Baron, but how can they find him? And then Crane remembers the beast. The Baron desperately needs him alive. And in that case, we must catch him ourselves and thus lure the enemy out. Everything in Genius is simple. For this operation, Crane takes a gas cylinder from the factory, gets into a car, and begins spraying the gas behind him to attract the beast. And it works. The beast is here. Lydia tries to gain control over him, but he resists. She tells us that we need to wear him down. To do this, they had to beat him up a bit, but Crane overdid it and knocked him out. However, that didn't stop Lydia from taking control of him. Then, Camillo injects the beast with Crane's plasma to restore its human form and sanity, after which it is taken to the base. So, we go there, Lydia awakens the beast using telepathy, and it turns out everything worked as planned, and the beast regained its consciousness, allowing it to tell who it is and how it came to the Baron. So, are you ready? Well, I think so. After all, it turns out the beast was actually Aiden Caldwell all along, our old pilgrim friend. Aiden was the main character of the second game of Deep Space Nine, in case anyone has forgotten. Aiden just revealed that he and Spike set out to rescue Crane from the Baron's clutches. We might have spotted him at the beginning of the game. That guy in the mask, that's Aiden. And honestly, I knew it was him right away. I recognized him by his eyes and hair and the fact that he was with Spike. So, as we recall, he and Spike were captured and the rescue operation went awry. Upon learning that Spike was still in the Baron's hands, Aiden says we need to rescue him immediately. However, we cooled his ardor. Going in unprepared like that would be suicide. For now, we have the chance to ask him a few questions. For example, we learned that he and Spike had pinpointed Crane's location using the classified GRE data they'd found. We also learned that Crane was captured outside the city after the fall of Haran. When GRE disbanded, the Baron went rogue, but Aiden and Spike managed to find out where his final headquarters were. But Aiden himself doesn't know why he became a beast, but we already know that Waltz experimented on him as a child and now the Baron too. As a result, his appearance changed dramatically and he gained massive muscle mass, more than Schwarzenegger in his prime. No, seriously, what did they feed him back then? Protein or something? He was a real skinny in the second film, and here he's bigger than Crane. Although he's also a muscle man, despite his 13 years of torture. Apparently, the Baron locked Crane in the gym for 13 years. Incidentally, Aiden's appearance has become very similar to Waltz's. And there's an explanation for that. After all, he injected him with his DNA during experiments. Okay, what was I talking about? Our conversation is interrupted by the Baron, who suddenly contacts us on the radio. It turns out he's already managed to capture and imprison Olivia. And now he's demanding that the beast be brought to his mansion before noon, otherwise Olivia and Spike will turn into mindless creatures. Anyway, we need to get into his mansion. The sheriff says the building plans are in the City Hall archives. In the meantime, we need to gather our strength before such an important mission and get some sleep. But there's a problem. After we get some sleep, it turns out Aiden is missing. Or rather, he went to the Baron alone and surrendered to him so he could save Spike and not expose us. But who would have thought? The Baron refuses to return Olivia and Spike. He also needs Crane. Well, we decide to give him a hard time instead. After all, the plans for the mansion showed a secret passage from the dungeon. It's based on a medieval castle. So, Crane makes his way there, blowing up the brick passages, eliminating the snipers, lowering the gates, and letting the others in. The assault begins. Our friend Sven died during the shootout, but Lydia managed to unleash zombies on the Baron's soldiers using telepathy. Crane then shot all of the Baron's guards and found an elevator leading to a massive underground complex. This is where we escaped at the beginning of the game. There we had to fight chimeras. Not without Lydia's help, by the way. Afterward, Crane found Aiden unconscious in one of the cells. He tried to free him, but Olivia suddenly locked the cell and sprayed it with sleeping gas. Then she came up to us and extracted Crane's blood, declaring her regret. Yeah, so it looks like she betrayed us. A little later, Crane wakes up and finds himself at dinner. As it turns out, all our comrades had also been tranquilized and brought here. Spike is sitting here too. Finally, after so many years, Crane and Spike are reunited. It's truly impressive. A couple of minutes later, the hero of the occasion appears, the Baron, and so does Olivia. He starts chatting like, well, guys, I invited you here to celebrate the success of my experiment. What experiment? Well, the Baron explains that Crane's escape was part of his experiment. He knew he would seek revenge, kill chimeras, and gain strength. By doing so, we merely helped him with his research, and Olivia knew all about it. And here, it's worth recalling the very beginning of the game. At this point, we hear Olivia talking, presumably to the Baron, and he tells her that Crane needs to be released. But whether his plans included Aiden's escape as well, I'm not sure. Still, the Baron had almost everything under control. So, now the Baron's project is complete. His infected have become much stronger, and most importantly, he can now control them. Then they bring him a knife, he approaches Spike and thanks him for providing such a valuable research subject like Aiden, but he doesn't need it now. After that, the Baron executes Spike. Yeah, I feel sorry for the guy. After all, he was with us for 3 whole chapters, so I order everyone to write "Press F Spike" in the comments. Then the Baron wanted to kill Camilo, but Lydia got into his head. Then he slammed her against the table and killed Camilo. When it was Lydia's turn, Olivia intervened. She asked him to stop. She says it's all too cruel and all that. He hands her a gun and orders her to kill Crane. Olivia explains that her father is infected, and the Baron refused to help him unless she does what he says. So she was forced to betray us. After that, Olivia tries to kill the Baron because she already betrayed him, but to no avail. Lydia unleashes her mind games again, and Olivia, seizing the opportunity, stabs him in the eye and frees the surviving heroes. Olivia says she's always been on our side, but she hid it and played along with the Baron. That's her double game as far as I can tell. Then, in a rage, Aiden attacks the Baron's soldiers and goes looking for the protein. Or rather, looking for that bastard Baron. Crane joins him. Together, we sabotage the Baron's evacuation. And the final battle begins. During the battle, Aiden went to Lydia's aid. I, meanwhile, beat the Baron solo. But he didn't give up and injected himself with the fruit of his labors. An injection with an enhanced virus, which turned him into this dummy. In the end, I beat him again. Crane gathered his strength and with his legendary double kick, sent the Baron into freefall. And then, with the help of the equally legendary piece of rusty pipe, he finished the job, killing the bastard. That was it. Our revenge was complete. Crane climbed back in, but a surprise awaited him. The GRE showed up in a helicopter. And from there, apparently, the same GRE woman from the first game started broadcasting. Now, it turns out that the GRE hadn't disbanded all this time as everyone thought. They claimed they simply had to go underground, but they never went away. And the Baron, in turn, worked for them, but at some point he stopped and became a burden to them. But since Crane killed him, the GRE thanked him with a slight grin. You're still as valuable an ally as ever. We hope you'll return to us. After these words, the helicopter flies away, but Kyle says they won't go away that easily. Now he'll deal with them. Lydia and Aiden approach us. Together, our heroes look to the future. We will make GRE answer for everything. This is not the end. Let's sum it up, ladies and gentlemen. In my personal and subjective opinion, the new DL is absolutely fantastic. It's everything I expected from this game, and I don't regret playing it at all. While playing, I often felt such pleasant nostalgia, because the Beast reminds me a lot of the legendary first game. Everything is awesome here. Excellent combat and overall gameplay. Eerie nights and, at times, atmosphere. A decent plot, albeit with a simple premise. Good graphics, and perhaps even optimization. After all, I was able to play on a far from the most powerful PC. And one more thing about the plot. I really liked how the developers added Aiden here and allowed the protagonists of two games to meet literally two legends united. And that's incredibly cool. I've always considered Aiden a underrated character. The DL community always considered him inferior to Crane. That might be true, of course. But I'm glad his story will continue and he'll prove himself. And by the way, just imagine the enormous potential there is for a third game. It could feature a dual protagonist. That is, the ability to play as both Crane and Aiden. Together, this duo would be simply unbeatable. Oh yeah, I was really surprised that GRE still exists. Their appearance is a huge boost for a third game, again. So, we're waiting, it's working out. And that's all for now, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you each and every one of you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for videos about other really cool games. See you again.